Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 13th of May. We'll scroll through the numbers. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're looking at a lot of green here. Big day. Not a shock. I mean, we were really looking for a higher close. We know how successful the Cyan Daily candle has been. Well, with only one loss over the whole year, it's done pretty well. And considering that was a tiny little down move, we'll take a look at it in a second. Finish the S&P here first. Look at all those new buy signals. Mamma mia, as we say here in Italy. Look at that moving over to the NASDAQ. It's Christmas in May. What happened to sell in May and go away? Not so great if you did that. All right, so we had the Cyan candle. You know, when someone asked me, how do you get that if you have the indicators? This is just the 15-minute buy sell on the daily, and that produces the Cyan candles, and then below it is the regular DOC paint bar. So nothing special as far as that goes, but interesting part about it was, here it was, there was the only loss of the year. Even had a gain for most of the day on that, and it ended up closing -3. But, you know, that's plus 23.5 plus points in the last 3 signals. Not bad. You know, we can look at the whole year, and it was pretty extraordinary. So no shock with any of it. We got above the Cyan on the open with the green on the DOC here. We had move into the new zone, and you combine both of those, and that's extreme power to the upside, and boom. Not to mention we've had, you know, Cyan consistently below zero here, and all in all, just fine. No surprises. Yeah, near overbought at that particular point doesn't mean that it can't still move a little bit. We're not red yet. We could get close to that, but overall, piece of cake. I like it when they make it easy. NQ, so off of the original buyback here, a little bit of weakness, really confirmed itself positive when the steel crossed above here. Then it was just a matter of waiting for the green to pivot. And once it did, boom, you know, look out. Makes it nice and easy that way. YM, interesting, puts in a red dot. That's a down hawk from that setup. However, you know, you've got green that just crossed above. You had red into a new zone. Those are all positives, though I do see steel fading a little bit, but it made a higher peak than the previous one. You can see that relationship. And now you've got 3 successive lower Cyan peaks, which lower Cyan, higher price. So overall, I would say that we still have the upside momentum with this as of yet, but we'll keep an eye on it because, you know, this is always where I look to a spider developing. So keep an eye on it. Not too concerned overall. Interesting part about that USO, you would expect that you were going to see some extended improvement on USO if you're going to get broader market move. This represented exactly the opposite of that. You still had the rising red and white, but you had Cyan pop up. Now, if Cyan breaks above this previous peak, then I would be more concerned and suspect about a market breakout. Not to mention gold. I mean, that was clear with the Cyan moved above the previous day down here. We were just waiting for the pivot. Boom, gapped up significantly. Did retrace a lot of it, but that's still within buy characteristics. You would just need to see red now turn up. And that, again, I would think, not necessarily putting pressure on the market because as there's a realization of growth, then you also have the expectation of inflation. And once that actually catches hold, I mean, that hasn't been really established well in the market at this particular point. No one believes that there's real growth, at least those buying the significant commodities, which is why gold has suffered as it has. And it's interesting, too, because as they start to realize that central banks have been buying it up at the lower level, then it will start to spark significant interest. But not worried about it at this particular point. X had, you know, crossed over right back here off of this, coming, having eliminated its red line, but the Cyan had kept drifting, so it was moving in the right direction. We were suggesting when it was here, 25 puts. Well, not bad. It worked out just fine. CLF, you know, it hadn't crossed below with the Cyan, so it was a nice pivot up, but still relatively weak. The intraday play had looked a little bit better from the other day. And it finally crossed over. It still looks potentially weak with the rising cyan, so I would expect a little bit more of a retrace in there. Again, we were talking about 17 puts, when it was down at these levels, giving you some cushion. So should be good right around that range. AIG did exactly what we'd been calling for all along with it, and moving to new highs on there. Did get positive extreme. We would expect that to retrace, just as it did over here. And then everyone gets scared and they run and it makes new highs, and they get scared and it makes new highs. And this is the way these things work. WLT off of its buy signal had worked well, though that looks like it's just about peaking out right there. Don't quite have cyan above the red, but as soon as that takes place, then you would definitely see some more downside to it. So now would be the time to look to sell calls on any position that you have. And looking at our ES, so yes, in fact, it was a good time to buy. We actually liked it a little earlier than the Mo program from its buy signal, but nice carry through. We do have some positive extremes, so we would expect that these moves will get retraced at a certain point, but with this nice rising red, look at that, it's just beautiful. Keeps going. In fact, now it's getting up to the purple. Now, when it gets to the purple, though, you got a problem, because it doesn't last too long at that particular point. Once, because what'll happen is it'll start to roll over at that particular spot, and then you're going to get some type of a retrace. And at this particular point, again, 50%, but we can go ahead and do a Fibonacci just for the fun of it real quick here. Get a general gauge. This is current futures, which they're up right now, somewhere around 1878 range. So if you figure roughly 1880-ish, so a little bit pullback of 15 or so, but it doesn't mean we still can't rise another 10 or 15 and then have the 50% adjusted to that. So it's got to be when you finally get a significant sell signal with that cyan so far below red white. That's nice. It's catching up to it now. And you're about to see higher peak right here. So no matter if that moves, you'll have higher cyan peak, but you can see steel down in the safety zone. And let's look at the intraday, because the steel in the safety zone was the clear signal for the whole day. All right, here we go with the 5K, and you can see it coming off of here. Started to move up, get into a little bit of a muck period, and then boom. Literally the breakout right where I had my line from before, and it broke out above it. And once it did, you can see the steel. It just stayed parked down below there all day long. Really couldn't even get any sizable moves for the steel to even contest the green. Did it a couple of times, but the huge safety zone with the steel, there was no movement of it back above, like where you would expect above here that you're going to get some kind of turnaround when you get down in those safety zones. That's what it's there for. Let you know that you got some problems. You're going to need to see that steel spike. You had a couple of moments where it looked like you might get something, but at that point you ended up with the green back above, and this was the only spot right here where you had cyan above red. So it's crazy, but that's what happens on those breakouts. And then with the daily understanding, made it pretty straightforward that it was going to be a nice day. Well, at least to the long side, depends on which direction you were playing. But clearly we were looking for the long side, so in that case it was right on the money. We're going to flip back here to some of the daily alert stocks. So we talked about Apple being well in that safety zone. We're really too concerned about much of what the little retrace that was taking place. It was just an opportunity to get yourself situated. Did exactly that. We can scroll through a lot of these because they had all started to just begin to make some turns. In this case, even with the decline for Amazon, it was still staying above the cyan. A little bit late. That's just still kind of not thrilling. I wouldn't be too excited about that Amazon chart. Google, we could see that it was about to make those higher pivots. It stayed above here. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to last too long because now you're already above the plus 13. But needless to say, it was still fine from the intraday signals that happened on. Most of these all happened on Friday, so there really weren't a whole lot of alerts for money because all of these had given buy signals on Friday, and they just carried through. So it just became a continuation. Likewise with PCLN, did the same thing. It had the buys. And we talked about this one before, when it doesn't go below the red there and stays above it, and you just a matter of looking for a little bit of a pop as it is now, still within that red. As soon as you get a turn, particularly with the steel below the cyan, that's an opportunity to short it, because you would expect you're going to come all the way back down to these lows. So that will be a nice opportunity to short on that one. Tesla's still looking ugly. I mean, this is one of those few that didn't have any buy signals, so the fact that it had any movement up was just an opportunity to either selling in the money and call on a pop, because that's not looking particularly attractive. Twitter coming off those lower peaks still. This is also going to be an opportunity to sell deep in the money call if you own it, or at least get out free if you don't, and or buy put. Just looking for that steel to dip down below. You know it's going to retrace those lows. Baidu, not bad. That was a decent configuration. We had liked the fact that on the dip here, it was stayed above the red line and carried through nicely with that. Look at the FAS. FAS have been doing very strong from this signal all the way back over here. Both of them green and continue to rise. And now it's at the fateful moment here. So it's going to be key to see which direction it breaks. If the cyan breaks up and you still end up with higher price, that's an opportunity to take your gains and be ready for a little bit of a pullback. So kind of an interesting point at the market. I think you can see it also in a variety of different stocks here. A lot of them beat up a little bit, so not unlikely that they would see a little bit of recovery. As always, though, we will continue to stay updated on it. You can look for me on the private Twitter feed, Stock Twits. I believe I will be sending out to indicator members update on a couple of the 15-minute alert charts where you'll be able to activate some of the candle alerts. So I will let them know when that's all put together. As always, though, trade well.